Welcome everyone to the October 7th meeting of the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association. Before I begin, there are a couple of changes to the order of the day, which is to say that we are joined today by Deputy City Manager Marlon Brown, to whom we are enormously grateful for stepping in with literally 20 minutes notice. The mayor was unable to make it, and Marlon it's tremendously appreciated, so thank you very much. We'd like to slot Marlon in immediately after the treasurer's report and before we start any significant business so that he can get on with his work. Another change, the first item under new business, which is to review and or approve the DSCA strategy goals, etc., that is being continued to the next meeting. This is going to be somewhat of a long meeting, and so we wanted to give people more time to review them, on board members, I should say, more time to review these items and make the meeting tonight a little bit easier to do within the time limit. So I'm going to call the roll, and if this is for the board members, would you just indicate that you're here? Patrick Gannon.
Yes, here.
Jamie. Still.
Here. Here.
Clark Warren.
Here.
Peter Fanning. John Moran.
Here.
Roger Barry.
Here.
Bob Parolo. Ken Sheelan.
Here.
Thank you. Now we just quickly will go to Jamie Still, who is the secretary. Would you like to make a motion for the minutes, Jamie?
Yeah, does anybody have any changes or edits? Did we receive them?
The agenda only has September 2nd, but they would be September 2nd and 10th, which you were sent. Does anybody have any changes for either of those? And do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Treasurer's report, Clark.
Yes, before I start, I just wanted to thank, is this not showing up here? Thank our president for the hat. I assume everybody got a hat, not just me.
Board of Directors. Board of Directors, yes.
And I hope they're wearing their hats proudly. Okay,
Yeah.
the balance in our Sable Palm checking account is $8,600, $86.51 and 68 cents. That's our available balance.
That's it? Okay.
That's
All
it.
right.
Wish
Thank
it were
you.
bigger.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So right now we're going to bring in the Deputy City Manager, Marlon Brown. And if Marlon, if you could give us a little bit of an update on what's been happening in the city regarding COVID, et cetera. I'll leave it to you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Thank you, Marlon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Ms. Normile, or Eileen. It is so good to see so many familiar and friendly faces. I hope when I'm finished, the faces are still friendly and familiar. As your president mentioned, in terms of the latest with COVID, and again, we are so grateful to David Lowe, who helps us tremendously by tracking what's happening in the city related to cases, whether they're going up, down, sideways, or in between. So David, we owe you a tremendous ton of gratitude for what you do for keeping us aware as to what's happening. And I'm sure David, if he has a report, he will share with you what's been happening. In terms of COVID itself, obviously, we track very closely what the governor is doing and the state is doing in terms of, his executive orders and the reopening. So recently, a number of executive orders were either extended or amended. The first one being the allowing of restaurants to go fully to 100% and bars up to 50%. So restaurants are at 100, bars are at 50. local governments could regulate the bars if they intend to go above 50%, and we don't intend to do that, given that there are still numbers fluctuating in terms of COVID. Restaurants, I don't believe many will take advantage of that 100%, because again, there is there are parts of the population that are still somewhat concerned about the disease. So we've extended the opportunity for restaurants to use the parking spots. Some of them already have the use of the sidewalks for sidewalk cafes, but we have allowed them to use parking spots in the downtown area. And some of them on weekends do use the street, specifically Lemon Avenues, State Street, and parts of Lower Main, to expand their dining out into the public right-of-way. And so not many have taken advantage of that part of it, the street dining, but many have taken advantage of using the parking spots for expanded seating. And so I expect that to continue, at least through the end of the year, but we'll see what happens in terms of the numbers and vaccines and so on and so forth. The biggest item that we have been given direction on from the state is the in-person meetings of the City Commission. The governor extended that for 1 more month, so that expires, and he basically said no more extensions after the end of the month. So he extended for another month through the end of October, but with no more extensions. And so we've been busy trying to determine how to best accommodate in-person City Commission meetings, advisory board meetings for those of you who are on some of our advisory boards, how we can accommodate, could we begin to accommodate those for in-person settings. We've done a number of improvements to the City Commission chamber. For those of you who have had the opportunity to see that, we have gone and put in plexiglass dividers at the dais for each one of the seats. So each one of the seats is separated on 3 sides, front and on the sides, by plexiglass. The mayor is the only one who requested that she be provided with a rooftop. And so we'd be installing a plexiglass top in the mayor's spot. The area where presenters sit at the table, that in of itself also has plexiglass partitions. Right now, it's only on the sides. There are 5 spaces. We have limited that to 3 spaces and put plexiglass on each side, but not in front where they actually present to the commission. The commissioners and the mayor have asked that we also put a divider in front. So there'll be a divider in front for protection for those speaking to the commissioners, and the commissioners will have, obviously a level of protection in front of them as well. One of the things that we're contemplating are those who come in for presentations, members of the public or applicants, or those from those who are will be rebutting any testimony that's given, and those who are providing citizens input as to would they be allowed to come at the table. Right now.
Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just saw Peter speaking. I don't know if you're stopping me.
I'm sorry, Marlon. I was, yeah.
Okay. All right. So right now we are looking at probably putting a podium to the back of the chamber and having individuals come in and speak to the commissioners from the back of the chamber. Legally, from what the city attorney is telling us, is that once that exemption to in-person meetings expires, we cannot have the public actually provide input or to give any of their input from Zoom or from another room. They would actually have to come in person into the chamber to be able to provide input to the commission. So it doesn't mean that they have to be in the commission before they speak or after they speak. So we're looking at keeping them both in room 12 and in the SRQ Media Studio room, and then escort them when it's their turn to provide citizens input or speak. So all these things we're still trying to work out legally. logistically, do we as a body, in terms of the commission and staff, would be required to break regularly so we can wipe down the chamber and the chairs, the podium, etc. All those things we are looking at. We'll be having a staff meeting next week to discuss those things. This item will be discussed with the commission at the October 19th meeting. And so there'll be a lot to be discussed. So stay tuned on October the 19th as we discuss more of this with the commission as to how to accommodate the in-person meetings. In terms of business assistance, the county just opened probably a week or two ago, working with the Economic Development Council, the CARES Act program for business assistance and grants to businesses, individuals, and those who are having challenges financially. And that opened probably about a week or 2 weeks ago. And so they are currently taking applications for that. We are helping them in a limited way in terms of getting the word out to businesses and individuals about the availability of that funding. It's about $17 million. The county actually got about $75 million in all from the state, but they have broken it down into four disbursements, and they're working on the first $17 to $18 million. And there are 4 categories under which the money would be used. I think one is like public safety, business assistance, individual assistance, and I can't remember the last one. But the only thing that they've asked us to do is to get the word out to businesses and individuals that this funding is available for them, whether it be rental assistance, mortgage assistance, small business assistance, payroll protection, all of those things qualify. In terms of other COVID matters, the city is still under a local state of emergency. Mr. Bowen puts out every 7 days an extension of the emergency order. He does that in consultation with the mayor. And, we either slowly through a creep, provide some limited openings or some limited activities, but more so everything is still status quo in terms of city hall still being closed, limited access to a lot of city facilities and parks and public areas. And recreational areas. Unless anyone has a specific question as to what park is open, what activity centers are open, I'll be able to respond to that. Madam President, I think that is all I may have right now. I know David does more in terms of tracking the COVID cases, so I will leave that up to him in terms of what he, can share.
Thank you, Marlon. Can you bring us up to date on the police body cameras?
Definitely. Very good question and very timely. Back a number of years ago, we actually had a test back in, I believe, 2016, 2015, 2016, related to body cameras and the use of body cameras. Once that test was over, we sort of held off on doing anything further. There were a series of public records requests from the ACLU, and we were basically inundated. And so we were sort of, kind of limited in terms of really moving forward. And then obviously all of the issues related to 2020 brought back up that issue and the need for body cameras. We had some funding that we kept setting aside in the event that the commission wanted us to move forward. So luckily we had we had about $1 million actually set aside. And then obviously with all of the issues in 2020 related to, issues with law enforcement and the public and the protests, the commission in its wisdom decided to, bring that forward and ask us to move forward with that. So we did a little bit of research. We looked at, what was out there in terms of the most recent equipment and so on and so forth. And we we have a contract for tasers with a group called Axon, AXON. And so we engaged them with, what was the latest technology in terms of body cameras. And it was fortunate that at the same time, our tasers were getting ready to be replaced. So we were able to, since we had a contract with them, negotiate, getting both tasers and body cameras at a reduced price. So we updated the commissioners this past Monday in terms of how many officers would be outfitted. Because of the cost of this, we determined that we will just outfit at this time, not all sworn officers, but only patrol. We have about 172, 173 sworn, but about 122 in patrol. So all the patrol officers will be outfitted with the body cameras. The way the body cameras would work would be, there are several ways where they do continuously record, but every 30 seconds they erase what has been recorded until or unless the officer actually activates the body camera. Then it captures the previous 30 seconds and then starts recording and stores that recording. Or if the officer turns on their siren and lights, or if they were to pull their taser or gun, it could be activated without they actually manually activating it. So that's what we're looking at in terms of the technology with the body cameras. The other part of this is that the storage and the management of it, we actually would be engaging Axon to store all of the body camera footage. We will also be, we also requested from the commission 3 bodies, 3 individuals that will be responsible for the body cameras. One would be a manager to ensure that the body cameras and the training necessary for the body cameras is being done. The other one will be a technical or technician, a technical person, that if there are any issues with the body camera, we can immediately get those repaired. We actually are going to be ordering 10 additional body cameras other than the 122. And the reason for that is that if for some reason officer's body camera is not working, they can use one of the 10 spare that we have while we fix the one that needs repair. And then we'll have someone who actually will be responsible for public records, because as you know, Sarasota is the center for public records requests and litigation. And so we will be having an individual who will be responsible for ensuring that all the footage that Axon has, that we have access to it, that when we retrieve it, we're able to take a look at it, see if it needs to be redacted and what information needs to be redacted, and then before we put it out, so we don't run into any privacy concerns in terms of someone or someplace being recorded without their permission. Obviously, in a response, you can record, but again, there are a lot of peripheral issues that may come into play, and we have to make sure that whatever we give at a request of a public records request, that is redacted appropriately. And so because of a lot of steps that has to be in place before we actually implement the body cameras, the chief does not expect it to be in place until July 1 of 2021. We have to impact bargain with the police union, and impact bargaining does not mean we necessarily have to sit down with them and negotiate the do's, the don'ts, the if, the whens, the whys. It's just putting them on notice that this is coming into play, and that if they have any issues, to let us know. But we, by management rights, have the ability to implement body cameras. So we have to impact bargain in that. All officers and all sworn, they have to be trained on the use of the body cameras, and that in of itself will take some time to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the use of the body cameras, how to use it, when to turn it on, what happens, in a I won't say nothing is really private, but officers engage, let's say our downtown beat, engage a lot of individuals on a daily basis, just in terms of communication, partnership policing, community policing, etc. Just assuring individuals that, because an officer is having a conversation with them doesn't mean that they're necessarily being recorded. So all of the legal parameters related to their work on body cameras, they have to be trained on that as well. And then obviously, getting it in place. And so the chief does not believe we would be ready for the latest, being conservative, until July of 2021. If we could be ready any sooner, we'll put it in place. So that's the latest on body cameras.
Marlon, I know one of the reasons it wasn't put in place a couple of years ago was because the law wasn't settled regarding search and seizure and redacting, et cetera. Are we comfortable at this point that the law is settled?
Very, very good question from a lawyer herself. Yes, so that has been settled. The legislature, in their wisdom, went back into the public records statutes and made some exemptions to the body camera law that gives us a level of comfort in terms of protections from lawsuits or in terms of privacy, so on and so forth.
Thank you. I'd like to see if there's any questions from the board. Ken?
Marlon, you mentioned storage of footage. How long does that last?
Good question. So, and that was a question raised by one of the commissioners, because in the contract with Exxon, it says unlimited storage, and for however long we need it. Usually, and again, some of you are more, have more knowledge than I do in terms of, legal issues and how long items have to be stored. In certain criminal cases, Ken, we have to keep the recording forever. I think in terms of homicides and those types of issues. And then there are certain dates for certain types of crimes that you can dispose of depending on. And so I will get you, based on what we do right now for public records, how long we store certain types of evidence, I will get you those time periods.
Okay, follow up, Marlon. How about security of that storage of footage? Who does it, Axon, or is there someone else? And if there's a criminal case involved, how do we make sure that it's not, pieces of it aren't lost?
So to the first part of that, Ken, Axon will store the recording. And so they will have it in their library of storage until we request it for some type of criminal case, which will then come in our possession, and we will keep it as evidence and stored in our evidence computer server, whatever, so we can easily, retract it whenever we need it.
Thanks.
Retrieve it, sorry, whenever we need it.
That would be kept at the police department, Marlon?
Correct.
It's like an evidence locker.
Correct, you got it.
Police have, yeah.
Correct. And again, one of the things, that we have to be cognizant of is, which is a good question that came up, some defense attorneys, obviously we may not be able to redact a lot of the information on it, because in terms of defending someone, they want to also see what occurred and who may be a witness, who may not be a witness. So we are having some conversations with the city attorney's office related to, what we provide defense attorneys when they do request this as part of a public records.
Thank you. John, I think you have a question. John, you're muted.
Hi, Marlon. A security question. Most of us know Mike, the private security patrol officer who patrols the heart of downtown. You usually spot him on Lemon in Maine. His company's contract expires in December. The feedback is that it will not be renewed. The DID, it has on its future agenda to consider taking up where the owner of the property on the east side of Lemon Avenue and other places downtown, who has been paying roughly $60,000 a year for that private foot patrolling officer. Please feel free to point me in the direction to get the answer to this question, but can an agency of the city that did hire a private security company and continue to fund that security service, which is basically patrolling certain areas of downtown. So the question, I guess, is, can an agency, the city, just go out and hire a private security company to supplement what the police department does? Because we do have we do have foot patrolling officers for that portion of downtown.
So just in terms of my, still to be affirmed and confirmed answer would be yes. The reason being is that we hire private security for our city facilities. As you may have seen before COVID, we had private security at the entrance of the City Commission chambers. We have private security at the Van Wezel, and we have private security at our, utility payment center that we use on occasion. So right now, if we are doing it, the dead being an agency of the city, I cannot see why they wouldn't be able to do it, but let me confirm, and get back to you on that.
Okay. I have a vague recollection that 5 years ago, when the same subject came up before the DID, like you just said, the city did have private security, but I have a vague recollection that if we wanted to do this, we had to hire that same security company. So any case, do be clarified, and thank you.
Yeah, you may have to use what we have on contract, since we've already negotiated, we already solicited, went out for bid, got a contract. So you may have to use the same security company that the city uses. May not be able to. I don't know who Mike works for, if it's the same security company, but he may not be able to use, the company that he is with.
Okay, so we can get a clarification as to if we are restricted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are any other board of directors members have a question? And again, I'm going to ask anyone who is not on the board of directors to please shut their video off so I can get everyone on the board onto my screen. Thank you. Anyone else on the board have a question? Marlon, do you have a second if I open it to other people?
Sure.
Or do you have another meeting you have to get to?
No, I just wanted to kind of share a number of updates that may be of interest to discuss in terms of what's coming up on the City Commission future agendas. And, I just wanted to share that. Obviously, on October the 19th, the next City Commission meeting, we will be having a discussion on, some of you who may be interested, glyphosate. That's Roundup. The commission told us to take a year and come back with alternatives to the use of Roundup as one of the herbicides that we use for weed control. And so the Parks and Rec Department did a number of tests using some alternatives, and so that will be reported to the commission at the October 19th meeting. Also, the city attorney's office will be bringing up the part 2 of hotel houses. I know most of those are on the key and not necessarily downtown, but of importance to part 2 is which he's calling home sharing or host occupied. And so that would be coming back to the commission for their direction at the October 19th. This means that someone can rent out part of their home for 7 days or more as for lack of a better word, a vacation. We don't really call it vacation rentals, but the residence that has to be rented out, the owner has to be there, or the host has to be there. They just can't rent out the entire house and leave it up to the tenants or whomever is renting it to have free reign. A couple of other items that are coming up under legislative public hearings. The staff is requesting that the commission remove the primary grid streets from the comp plan. It's already in the zoning code. And so just to make it easier for the ability through a zoning text amendment than a comp plan amendment, which can take up to a year to amend, zoning text amendments can take as little as 6 months. it'll be easier for amendments to the primary grid streets to be done with the planning board and commission through any zoning text amendments and having it to go through the comp plan. A couple of items, the expansion of the bid. That's the Business and Improvement District St. Albans. They have requested that they go from 3 to 5 members, so that's on the agenda as well. New college development agreement, that was heard by the planning board, and that's on the agenda as well. A couple of other items, these are dealing with Dr. Kaufman. He has 2 properties on Mound and on Osprey, and that he's asking for a rezoning of that, and that went before the planning board as well, and that's on the agenda. One of the big items in the evening, the Bay Park Conservancy, working with the city and the county, have created a tax increment financing district, kind of similar to a CRA. The Board of County Commissioners just recently approved an interlocal agreement, or the workings of an interlocal agreement, and that will be before the commission for consideration in creation of a TIF district to help fund the capital improvements at the Bay, including a future performing arts hall on the Bayfront as well. So those are the sort of the big ticket items. The planning board will be dealing with a number of zoning text amendments for the Bay Park Conservancy and the city that will be coming up on October the 21st. We do not have a date yet for Selby, nor unconditional surrender, nor the zoning text amendments for the Bay Park that will come before the City Commission. But those are items that I believe may require special City Commission meetings, given the interest by people in the individuals in community, residents, etc. So big election coming up on November the 3rd. As I shared with the commission, I don't believe it makes any sense for them to take up some of these items that would require 2 public hearings, where one commission hears it. If the commission changes, another commission will have to hear all over again on second reading, some of these issues. So I think it's best to just let things stay where they are and have a new commission take up some of these issues after November the 3rd. The state of the commission, the state of the city, and the commission swearing in is on November the 6th, Friday, November the 6th at 12 noon. And so hopefully you can all join us for the swearing in of the commission and the changeover of the mayor and the vice mayor, if that happens.
Thank you, Marlon.
Right.
Just now, I know Marlon, we promised not to keep him too long, but are there any other questions from anyone else who is here? Peter?
I'm almost reluctant to ask the question, but I'm going to. Good or bad or indifferent, the governor has removed the restrictions on occupancy in bars and restaurants, etc. I'm hopeful that the city will continue to allow, especially restaurants, to use sidewalks and streets, even though they're back to 100% occupancy, because that's been a very successful program, and I think they continue to need the boost. So does the city have any plan to remove that permission? And it's easy, and it's a concurrent easy permitting process?
See, Peter, if you had joined us early, you'd have gotten my report on that. Yes.
So fine. Then I'll get it on the recording.
Yeah, but that's okay. Just again, for those who may have joined us late, yes, we're going to continue allowing restaurants to use the parking spaces and the streets because even though restaurants have been given the ability to go up to 100% and bars up to 50%, I still believe that a number of residents, customers, patrons will not take advantage of going inside of a restaurant. And so, many of them feel more comfortable eating outdoors or, eating outside. So we're going to allow the restaurants to continue using those spaces until we feel, that there is a level of comfort with our residents, our visitors, and their customers about going inside actual restaurants and sitting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Marlon, again. Oh, I'm sorry, Ted Wilson.
Marlon, at the CCNA meeting, you made a real nice presentation also on roundabouts and the statues down there. You want to convey that to this group as well?
Sure. Yeah. And Ted, by the way, I did pass on your other item related to Palm Avenue to Alex, so she'll be taking a look at that. So what I shared with the commission, CCNA, all my meetings are kind of blending into one. What I shared with CCNA gave them an update on all of the roundabouts, 10th, 14th, and Fruitville. Fruitville was a roundabout on steroids. And so they all seem that they would be completed around the same time towards the end of this year. And so we are actually getting ready to put out another video related to the Fruitville roundabout, Fruitville 41 roundabout, because it's much different than the 10th and 14th in terms of lanes and how you enter and exit, the number of hawk signals that we have on the Fruitville roundabout. So we're getting ready to put a video out on that, but they should all be completed by the end of this year, if not sooner. The next step would be actually getting the sculptures in those 3 roundabouts. As you probably are aware, 2 have already been procured. That's for the 10th and 14th Street roundabouts. And then the Quay contributed to the city $250,000 for a sculpture in the middle of the Fruitville roundabout. So we'll be doing a call to artists for that one, and it will be done through what we call a request for qualifications rather than a request for proposals. And so I think the Public Art Committee have already weighed in on that one, and the commission has given staff direction to proceed on the sculptures for those roundabouts. But good news, all 3 roundabouts should be up and open by the end of this year, if not sooner.
Thank you. Any other questions from Marlon? All right, this will be the last one. Jim?
Marlon,
Jim Apple. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Marlon, it looks like Fruitville Road at the roundabout has been ready to open for weeks now, except for that big container that's sitting there. What's the status on that?
So as I just mentioned, it will be, they still have some work to do on the west side of the roundabout. And so, it's almost ready. We want to get the video done. And although it is slated to be completed, to really officially open by the end of the year, I believe it will be much sooner. And so they don't want to open it until they have everything buttoned up and ready for traffic.
Okay, I don't understand that, because Fruitville looks like it's paved all the way to the roundabout. I've been up there several times, and there's just a container box sitting there blocking it. Otherwise, it looks like it's perfectly done for road access. I understand the west side. This is the east side.
Yeah, I'll double check on that for you and see if there's anything that could be done for just that leg. I think Ted still had a follow-up.
Okay, Ted, one more.
Give us an update on the Gulfstream roundabout. That's what I was a bit more interested.
Oh, Gulfstream. Okay, good question. So Gulfstream roundabout, we actually had a really good meeting with FDOT, and one of the issues that was obviously raised with FDOT and the city was ensuring that the traveling public is not, doesn't have any challenges in terms of lane closures or street closures, and that there's continued flow especially during season. And so good news is that there would be no closures of the intersection of 41 and Gulfstream during construction. That none of the lanes will be closed off, and the reason for that is DOT came up with a very innovative and creative maintenance of traffic option, where they would keep the traffic that want to go towards the Keys, or coming from the Keys, or going north and south. Try to keep those lanes open as much as possible. So The project is actually going to start in January in terms of some work that DOT will be doing on the sides of the Gulfstream 41 intersection. They will actually start construction after Easter to avoid season, but the project itself will take about a year or a little bit more than a year to complete. So what they will be doing is that they're creating a number of bypass lanes, and they'll be actually creating sort of a mini diamond interchange, similar to what you see up at University Parkway, that will keep the traffic flowing. Those who are coming from the Keys will be able to go north and south. Those who are, heading towards the Keys would be able to go, south or towards the Keys. And I think I shared with CCNA that I would promise to share that diagram with them at their next meeting. But the DOT's intent and our intent is to make sure that there are no lane closures, no blockages of traffic to, exacerbate the problem with cars coming off the islands and those going towards the islands. So the intent is to keep all traffic moving as smoothly as possible. And I think DOT has done a very good job, which is a lot saying for DOT in terms of creativity and ensuring that we have a good traffic flow during construction.
Alan, many thanks. May your roads take you home quickly and safely tonight. Thank you so much for stepping in at the last minute, and it was really, really a worthwhile visit.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you very much. Those of you, I hope you all are still friendly and familiar faces after everything I shared. Have a good evening.
Thanks so much. The same to you, Marlon.
Bye.
Have a good evening. This brings us now. I've been remiss in not mentioning the fact that we have two candidates for District 2 with us tonight. Liz Alpert is here, and so is Terry Turner. So thank you both for coming, and may you remain as engaged as you are tonight for the next 4 years. Under new business, we are now at the point where I will take a motion to appoint a new member of the Board of Directors. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So moved.
Patrick, Jamie?
Second.
And would you like to mention a name? Thank you. Anyone? The name?
David. David Lowe.
Thank you. David, would you turn your video on, please? While David's doing that, we'd like any discussion regarding David's joining the board. Well, I'll say I can't overstate the amount of value that David brings to the board. You could hear Marlon just waxing poetic over all that David does for the city. Patrick, you had your hand up?
Yes, I was going to say that I wholeheartedly endorse that. I had a chance to meet David when he first got involved with the Rosemary District Association and was chair and then co-chair of their Green Space Committee. She was some walkability aspect, open space committee, I guess called in Rosemary, and led the efforts to secure space for a park in the Rosemary District, as well as working with numerous different city staff on trying to affect the very limited input of putting trees in the amenity zone on Florida Avenue, a little maybe 150-foot section. And the amount of cross coordination that's being required is just unbelievable. And David has shown the perseverance to stick with that on many occasions. So we welcome, and David has been participating with the DSCA's Green Space Committee. So I thank him for his activities.
Well, let's have an official vote. Would everybody?
Do you want to let the candidate speak?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please don't say no. Go ahead, David. Did you want to say something, David?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Patrick and all you folks. I've really enjoyed working with you. and I'm humbled actually to be asked to be on your board. So I hope I can live up to the expectations. I'll try hard.
We know you will. Let's vote you in. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Nobody. Thank you, David, and welcome. I hope that you will still be smiling a couple of months from now at the next couple of meetings. Now we're into old business, which is discussion about an annual condo survey. Jamie is going to handle this.
Kristen, I think, was talking to somebody about that. Is Kristen still here?
I actually haven't seen
Kristen's
her
not on
name
the call.
pop up.
No.
All right. I'm taking the show on the road.
Okay, I don't see her name here.
I think Kristen and Patrick were working on that.
Oh, okay. Patrick, were you going to handle this, or should we wait for?
No, but I can put up the information we have on this.
Okay, well, we
share
really
the screen
need a
here.
presentation of someone. You know what? Why don't we put this aside for the moment? And Jamie, can you reach out to Kristen?
I'll reach out to Kristen.
She's always
Kristen's gonna be joining us. Yeah.
something
Sure.
must have come up. So why don't we put this aside for the moment?
Sure.
And of course, the first name on the list under the, oh no, first we'll go to city update. That's John Moran. John.
A few items. I don't know if you've been out at night. I don't go out at night, but we have just completed the installing of tree lights on Main Street, Palm Avenue, State Street, Lemon Avenue, 5 Points Park. So we have 5 areas that the installation of which and the future maintenance of which will be funded by the Downtown Improvement District. So hopefully when people feel comfortable going out at night, that hopefully these tree lights will help generate a giant sucking sound to get people downtown Sarasota and enjoy themselves. Interesting that the Downtown Improvement District got their meeting on Tuesday, just hired the same company that the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association hired to do an annual marketing plan for the Downtown Improvement District, pro it out. We are going to spend $70,000 a year in the hiring of that marketing company to manage, plan, execute the advertising of downtown Sarasota. So we're putting our money where our mouth is in terms of marketing downtown Sarasota. The board also approved a $200,000 storefront improvement project. I don't know what if you've been noticing this, but we've been getting some complaints that some of these storefronts are looking pretty shabby and tired. So again, we've put up a bunch of money. As I said, $200,000. The applicants can be a storefront that is a tenant or a landlord. They do have to be co-applicants, and at $5,000 per storefront max. So that's a potential of improving 40 storefronts in the retail-centric portions of downtown Sarasota. So those are some major expenditures by the Downtown Improvement District, again, to make downtown more inviting, encourage pedestrian activity, and of course the whole purpose of the Downtown Improvement District is to improve business. So that's an update of what's going on in terms of the DID and downtown that impacts residents.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We'll go directly now to Green Space Committee. Patrick, do you have an update for us on that?
Yes. Yes, I do. So the DSCA's Green Space Committee did meet last week on September 30th. And it was myself, David Lowe, Christine Schlesinger, and Ted Wilson. And we reviewed the green space goals and action plans that was submitted as far as part of the strategic direction here. We discussed a city's urban forest program and street tree planting plans. So for that, I had participated with Marlon Brown on a conference call a few weeks back on the city's efforts to try and see how they can move forward on their urban forest program, which was proposed by the tree advisory committee that they had and adopted by the city commission, but waiting for staff to find the ways to implement it. So they're looking for input from citizens, and we think that there's some work we can do. And obviously there's already work underway in Rosemary to get a tree planting plans prioritized on 4th Street, Boulevard of the Arts, and 10th Street. We talked about the next for the tree protection zoning text amendment that's going through the process there, and we are waiting to see where the status on that is. And we're aware that city staff are working on changes, as Marlon just mentioned, to the primary grid street work and the engineering design and criteria manual. And so these are underlying city things that we need to track so that we can make recommendations on as the city's looking at making changes to that. And the idea of holding a walkability and climate adaptation webinar. Originally, we were planning one for April of this year and had to postpone that. And we're feeling like it may be best to try and see if that can be scheduled for April of 2021. But that would need to be merged in with the events committee plans. So that's the input from the Green Space Committee. Any questions?
Questions, anyone on the board? All right. Next committee is Peter Fanning and the Homeless Committee. Anything new there, Peter?
On the Homeless Committee?
Yes.
Yes. I apologized when I sent out my summary report a little late. Normally, the Homeless Committee meets on the last Thursday of the month, and that's because it gives us time to get ready for any recommendations we need to make to the board on the first Wednesday of the next month. This sequence, however, we had to meet yesterday, and I was a little late getting the notes and summaries together. We have started, and the agenda yesterday was pretty much what everybody else has been working on with their committees, and that's to come up with the goals and actions for the new operations, DSCA operations plan. We did update our goals and our actions, and I don't think we have a set of recommendations like everyone else, and I've sent them finally to the board for their consideration. And I think that's going to be at a later date now. Is that correct, Eileen?
It'll be at the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. So you have plenty of time now to review that. And the committee did agree to continue and maintain the current meeting schedule, which is the last Thursday of each month at 5 p.m. We do 5 because we have some folks who work and some folks who are merchants and can't close their shops before 5. So we are up and operating again. We have a new member, Laurie Smith, and I think she's attending this meeting as well. And we're very glad to have her from the Jewel condominium. So that's my report.
Wonderful. We always like to hear about new people joining the committees. So thank you for bringing that up, Peter. We welcome that if anyone has an interest. The next one is the Safety Committee, which Jamie is not handling that anymore. So I've taken it over. It's going to be the Health and Safety Committee. The only thing I really have from the hospital, which is dated October 1st, is that inpatients may have 1 visitor per day for a 1-hour visit between 1 and 6, in case you were wondering. And critical care patients may have 1 visitor per day for a 30-minute visit between 1 and 6 p.m. And on October 1st, we were at 15 patients in the hospital who were diagnosed with COVID. Just an interesting little something that has to do, sorry about the rustling, with health and safety. Very briefly, this was in the newspaper a while back, but I thought it was worth bringing back up. There is a nonprofit called the Suncoast Technology Users Group, or STUG, that takes in your old computers and old computing equipment and refurbishes it and then sends it out to people who may need the help to obtain some of this equipment. So I wanted to get that out there. It is a Sarasota-based nonprofit, refurbishes and donates roughly 1,200 computers to people in need every year. Their email address is STUG for Suncoast Technology Users Group, and that's thestug.org. It seems like a very worthy cause. I think a lot of us sometimes have computers that we've upgraded or don't use anymore, and would be a good thing to put it to some good use. That's all I have. Roger now with the Transportation Committee.
Okay. Well, I'm glad Marlon was here because he took care of a update on the construction of the roundabouts on Fruitville 10th and 14th, which looking forward to their completion. I think one thing perhaps of interest, my wife and I are bicycling fans, and the construction and improvements of the multi-use recreational trail, the MIRT, which is currently underway with the construction of the roundabouts. It will be in addition to what's happening on the road to St. Armand's with the widening and the construction of the MIRT in that area. When this is finished, which will be later this fall, with the completion of the roundabouts, you will be able to bicycle from St. Armand's to the bay with only one minor and irritating interruption with the bridge, the narrow bridge at Coon Island. Is that called Coon? Raccoon?
Coon. Yeah, it's Coon Key. Yeah.
Coon Key, okay. But nevertheless, this is really going to be very nice that you can bicycle from St. Armand's over the bridge and as far as the bay or the new facility with Van Wezel. And we're looking forward to that. Let's see. I have a new member on our Transportation Committee who is also attending the meeting today, Alan Friedman from the LNRA. Pleased to have Alan. He is interested in the organization, and I want to welcome him. And let's see. I think that concludes my report.
Thank you, and welcome Alan Friedman. Now, the last but definitely not least, the Zoning Code Committee, and today we have a fairly significant report. So Mel, if you can turn on your video, and Mel Sykes will handle this. He is chair of the committee.
Eileen, I found some more typos, so I'll get a clean copy of the report to you. Try to do it tonight if I can. It's a lengthy report, especially by our standards, so I'm going to summarize part of it. I know the board members have the report but may not have read it, and other people in attendance have not seen the report at all. So I will read substantial portions of it, but then try to save a little time. At its August 17th.
No, do you want me to put that up on the screen or for people?
No,
okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. At its August 17th regular meeting, the city attorney presented 11 zoning text amendments, CTA, to the city commission and requested the commission waive the requirement for a formal development review committee report. The city attorney has stated he would provide a report, presumably prior to the planning board meeting, which is now set for October 21st, regarding the proposed ETAs. He also said he was discussing the concerns expressed by residents of Condo on the Bay with their attorney, Robert Lincoln. Subsequently, representatives of COTB asked to meet with us, as did the Bay Park Conservatory's Conservancy, sorry. It's a long day. Chief Implementation Officer, William Waddell. His attorney, William Merrill, also attended. Mr. Merrill drafted the CTAs. And the board members have a copy of those as well. At our COTB meeting, the committee met with Ms. Paige Atkins, and I'm embarrassed to say that was one of the typos, and I've known her for 15 years, but misspelled her last name, representing COTB on September 26th via Zoom. She argued that the proposed ETAs will adversely affect the environment and permit unacceptable intensity of use on the in the Bay Park and other parks as well. The specific issues she discussed were A, parking, B, First Amendment special events, C, proposed G-zone waiver rules, D, changes to marine park conditional use standards. Also, the definition of the civic boardwalk and pier that appears in the ZTA that amends section 201 of the city zoning code. Subsequently, I received an email from her as to the rest of the committee concerning the commercial development in the Bay Park. In response to committee members' questions, Ms. Atkins acknowledged that state and federal environmental laws take precedence over municipal ordinances when they are in conflict, and that federal and state permits will be required to construct the BPC planned boardwalk to ensure that that laws governing navigation rights and environmental protections are being complied with. Responding to a question about the requirement for quasi-judicial hearings, Ms. Atkins answered that the ZTA do not provide meaningful standards to be applied by the planning board and the city commission. Subsequently, we met with the BPC. The committee met with Mr. Waddell and Mr. Merrill on October 1st via Zoom. Mr. Waddell presented several PowerPoint slides to depict the amount of community involvement in planning the Bay Park and the steps required to obtain city government approval of phase 1 of the project. Issues discussed at that meeting were status of site plan approval, parking, federal and state permits, environmental damage mitigation, navigation impact, configuration of the Bay Park Civic Boardwalk, initial use standards, setbacks, and development standards. Committee members also asked about rezoning the Bay Park parcel located in the downtown Bay District to the G District. Since the stated goal, one of the goals stated by Mr. Merrill, was to improve the zoning code, we should not make matters worse by applying G-zone rules to a DTB parcel. I've got too many acronyms in this report. Another member responded to Mr. Waddell's comment that the way people are transported is changing. By pointing that out, that member pointed out that many people will need to drive to the park nevertheless, and that should be considered in the development plans. The committee did not address the First Amendment activity cited as a concern by COTB. That was the decision I made because what a municipality can and cannot regulate in terms of the right of a peaceful assembly is embedded in a tremendous amount of case law and agreements and litigation agreements and other forms of agreements. And really what the city will need is competent advice of counsel before acting. Our conclusions were environmental issues. First up, while expert testimony will be required to assess many of the issues raised by COTB, nevertheless, BPC will be required to comply with federal and state environmental protection laws and regulations. Proposed ETAs permit mitigation of damage to seagrass, mangroves, nearshore benthic communities, etc., but do not provide a time frame for doing so. B, Bay Park construction standards. By providing for the construction of civic boardwalks as a matter of right, but allowing customized construction standards developed ad hoc during the technical review process, the proposed CTA shift the burden of proof on quasi-judicial hearings from the developer to the public. Developing codified standards places the burden on the developer to prove, and I'm quoting here from the code, whether the development is in keeping with the intent and specific standards and criteria prescribed in pertinent sections of the land development regulations. That's code section 5061, 45061. If a site plan includes a structure that with customized dimensions, then it falls to effective members of the public to prove that the structure is incompatible with the community and presents health, safety, noise, or other forms of deficiencies. Furthermore, one of the reasons Mr. Merrill gave for writing, as I said previously, the proposed CTAs was to avoid, well, no, I didn't say this actually, to avoid litigation. The absence of specific opposite effect. Those developers and members of the public may look to the court to adjudicate their disputes. Parking. The absence of a national standard for passive parks makes it difficult to assess the 1 space per 10 acres requirement that exists in the zoning code. But in the near term, at least, Bay Park should have sufficient parking to minimize the need for guests to park on the street, though more patrols may be required. Currently, there's about 1,300 spaces at the Van Wessel, and at build out, they're planning to have over 800. Improving the city zoning code, Mr. Waddell and Mr. Merrill say that it was their goal to make the zoning code more clear and consistent. We note that a small parcel is located in the downtown Bay District, which means the proposed CTA applies G-zone rules to the TDB property. Committee recommendations that the DSCA Board of Directors advise the City Commission, Planning Board, City Attorney, and the Acting Director of Development Services that while this organization fully supports the Bay Park project, the residents of Condo on the Bay have the right to quiet enjoyment of their property. More specifically, A, the standards for structure setback, size, and height include boardwalks and shade coverings should be included in the zoning code as required by section 45061. Doing so will properly place the burden of proof on the developer, not the public. B, that parking be in sufficient quantity and conveniently located throughout the park to minimize the number of visitors parking on burning streets. C, that the zoning code require that commercial activity in the Bay Park be approved by the City Commission. D, require environmental damage to be mitigated in a specific amount of time. And finally, that the portion of the park zone DTP be rezoned G. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have questions, comments from board members? I know it's pretty complicated. Ken?
What I'd like to, I have about a dozen questions, and I wonder if I can just email those to Mel.
Oh, please.
Have them answer that way instead of taking up our time today.
You can, Ken. The only
Please.
thing is we do have to vote today because we have to.
I can't vote today.
Okay, because.
I think that's absolutely inappropriate because there are too many unanswered questions.
Do you want to try to ask some of those questions? Because the planning board will be taking this up within the next month, I believe. Is that correct, Patrick? I think
The 21st.
21st of October, yeah. So if we're
Can
going
you vote by email? Is that permissible? I was going to suggest Ken send me his questions and then you.
Yeah, if we could do it that way, that would work.
That's a good question. Patrick, have you ever done that?
We can certainly have I guess, a decision without a meeting that gets ratified at the next formal meeting.
All right, but then we can do that, Ken, if everybody else is all right with that, because this was an onerous.
Well, the only problem is, before I would like to know whatever Ken's questions and what the answers were.
Oh yeah, we'd have to search.
Which they would all be shared.
Yeah,
sure.
But if there's some specific ones that we could get into, that I think others have questions too, so maybe there are some things that should be asked here.
We should have discussion now as well, Ken, if you want to start with a couple of your questions.
Well, one of the A point on parking that the Condo on the Bay people said that the current zoning code is not adequate with respect to parking. That is 1 space per 10 acres. What data did they provide to suggest that it was inadequate? So that there should be some alternative to the zoning code requirement.
Oh, you're looking at their input.
Yeah, I'm looking at their remark.
Yeah, we found that there is adequate parking now. 1,300 spaces should work, and that build out would be the 800 more. I mean 800, total of 800.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is there's no national standard. So our code says one parking space for 10 acres. For most of our parks, it doesn't apply. Where it does apply at Lido, we actually don't do that. So
Ken, if I could interrupt for a second, Ken, we didn't hold a planning board hearing. you know, we went into this hearing first from Condo on the Bay and then from the Bay. But we don't have a staff report or, you know, there was no evidence presented. They just gave their side, what they would prefer, and the Bay itself explained what they would prefer. So this isn't the same as like a planning board or city commission meeting.
But the zoning committee drew some conclusions and is asking us to adopt some recommendations.
Right, and the parking conclusion, if you look at it, is vague. It talks about sufficient.
Well, I'm not satisfied, and I won't vote if you force the issue.
I'm not going to force you to vote. That's okay. Do you have another question?
Well, what about these comments about submerged lands? You know, what?
Well, even there, we concluded that federal and state regulations will have to be complied with. And then, yeah, the Corps of Engineers is going to do a survey. The Florida EPA is going to do a survey. And those regulations and statutes are going to have to be complied with. I would focus on what our recommendations are, and that's what we would be voting on, not what CMTV may contend.
This topical paragraph that says Condo on the Bay have the right to the quiet enjoyment of their property. They're in the heart of the city.
That's common law language, and it doesn't mean it's going to be completely peaceful. It means they do have it.
Why don't we remove quiet from that? Just say the enjoyment of their property.
Because it's a legal term.
It's a legal
term.
Well, it's
common law.
Also a lay term, and that's the way the public is going to understand it.
Also, I would say that when the Downtown Sarasota Condo Association makes recommendations on a zoning issue, it's very often a generalization and possibly with the idea of pointing out to the planning board and to the city commission that this is an issue you should really take a look at. We fall on this side of it or that side of it, but it's almost a highlight of certain issues. Because again, we're not running a planning board hearing.
I understand that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Did you have other questions, Ken?
Yes.
Okay.
It talks about, or one of the recommendations is that the zoning code require commercial activity in the Bay Park be approved by the city commission. Does this mean that every time a vendor changes, the city commission is going to have to gin up a public hearing? Why can't it be an accessory use?
Be a what? I'm sorry.
Why can't it be an accessory use rather than a full-blown city commission public hearing?
Well, what the concern is that one interpretation, and the city attorney may come back and say that we're misinterpreting. It's like 807. You look at the table 80, I believe it's 807. It permits somebody who's not a leaseholder, but like an extension of the city government, like Bay Park Conservancy, to issue to create commercial activities, recreational activities. Now, typically those are approved by somebody wants to put a fishing shop on city property. City commission would have to approve that. If they want to start renting out boats, city commission would have to approve that. If you make an accessory activity, then that means they can do whatever they want.
No, it doesn't. It has to be considered consistent with the zoning code.
But the zoning code says it can be done, then it can be done.
It could be a major accessory use or a conditional use or a minor conditional use.
There are other issues too, Ken, which we just became aware of today, or that we just read what was, I thought, a very good letter from Mr. Lincoln, who is the attorney for Condo on the Bay, which went through a fascinating analysis of First Amendment rights on city parks. And commercial activity is all tied up in those First Amendment rights. And whether or not the type of activity that goes on in a city park is actually consistent with housing and residential activity next door. Of course, he is representing them, but it was definitely a fascinating discussion. So That's all tied up in here. It doesn't say that the commercial activity in the Bay Park be approved by the City Commission every time. It just says be approved by the City Commission. So they may want to have a list of types of commercial activity when they write the ZTA.
We can write that a lot more clearly than that.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to your recommendations. Did you have any further questions?
Well, the number D, it says require environmental damage be mitigated in a certain amount of time. I don't know whether we've looked at federal and state regulations or whether we might create conflict.
Well, our current code doesn't provide for mitigation at all. So we go to allowing mitigation instead of just prohibiting environmental damage, and we could end up like the county, where the county doesn't put on time constraints. So if you tear down, knock down a parcel of trees, and then it could sit forever until finally the county rather, forces them to do it. That's why we thought there should be some time. Now that would be from case by case basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something you may be able to mitigate in a year. Something you may be, some cases made it to be able to do it in 2 months. So that would have to be case by case. We're just making broad recommendations here. That's why we didn't get into the code and try to rewrite it.
Mm-hmm. Well, then why don't we just say require environmental damage be mitigated?
Well, we say that, and then that's the problem with the county. The county code does say that, but it's open-ended then. It's when the mitigation is going to take place.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have it in there.
And what if it's in the bay? The environmental damage is in the bay. Then we get the federal government involved.
Of course. The federal government would be involved. It just doesn't address that at all. Our recommendation doesn't.
Well, that's the point. That's the point.
Well, actually, what it does, Ken, I think, is say in a specific amount of time, meaning those with the expertise that will be addressing this, and presumably in front of the commission and the planning board, they would make recommendations. We are not, we don't have access to that information.
Well, why don't we say that in the recommendation?
I think it's implied. Patrick?
I think it is there too.
Yeah, I think part of where that came from was the introduction in the zoning text amendments to change the standards of review.
Right.
From whether or not the development is can't impact. They must protect the rights and protect the grass, etc. And it's being changed to simply minimize impacts to result in net preservation. And that's where the question comes in with net preservation. Is that net preservation at times of certificate of occupancy, or net preservation over time in terms of mitigation? You plant something that in 5 or 10 years, seagrass will grow back or something like that. So I think that's where it becomes a standard review. And how can somebody determine, does it meet that standard if they don't know the time period for determining when the net preservation impact is met? So does that help, Ken?
Ken, did you have any more?
Yes. Do we know why the city zoned a small portion of that area DTB?
I'm not precisely sure. I should have asked a couple of follow-on questions, and I admit I did not. But I believe it was a bequest. The property was transferred to the city as a bequest, and it's burdened, it's encumbered. So there's no issue of the city could use it for something else. It's really just to the principle thing that we really need to clean up our code and make it more consistent with provisions, more consistent. And this was Mr. Merle's point. He wanted to help do that by writing these ZTAs. And so in keeping with that spirit, we thought, well, we should clean up this little matter as well.
Well, I'd be more comfortable if I knew why it was zoned DTB, because I remember having awful discussions with Mike Taylor about where the zoning lines were being drawn downtown, because there were some really odd examples, like right across the street at Players. Half the lots zoned DTB and half the lots zoned DTN. And the
I'll
same,
get, I'll get the answer for you.
same with
Hey,
downtown.
Ken, again,
Patrick?
the lot that he's talking about is on the just north of the boundary of Condo on the Bay. And actually, as you go down Boulevard of the Arts, it is to the south of the extended line of Boulevard of the Arts. So I think probably what was done was when the land use, they took the line going straight down Boulevard of the Arts all the way to the bay and said everything south of there was DTB. What was north of there was government, i.e. Where the Gee Whiz and the library was put.
There's also
And
an
so
air
that
right.
was actually a park. It was actually Broadway Park. It was listed in the city's neighborhood parks as Broadway Park at that west end. That strip of that was zone DTB because it was gifted from when that was all development property where the Beauciel and Condo and the Bay were built.
There's also
So I
an
think
air
that,
rights
that
issue.
might have been the origin.
There's also an air rights issue at the end of Boulevard of the Arts.
Right.
City only owns up to 12 feet.
Right. That's
So
what I said.
that
It's encumbered, and so that's why they have to clean it up.
So I think we need to figure out why we're doing this more clearly than simply making the recommendation, because it sounds like a good idea. Consistency sounds like a good idea, but I don't know whether it is or not.
Well, we can not make a recommendation and wait and see everything that comes out at a planning board hearing, but we would like to weigh in on issues that have some significance, because it's really not possible to have the answers to every single question. You're asking very good questions.
It's a matter of timing. It's a matter of timing, and we should have been given more time to make a decision.
If you had more time, would you be ready?
Well, sure. If I could email Mel and I would copy everybody on the board, and Mel can answer me in a couple of days and copy everybody on the board, then it would be easy to take a vote.
Okay, well, if Mel, so Mel we haven't been able to answer your questions sufficiently then.
No.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions? Did you have any more, Ken?
No.
Okay, so do we want to hold this off then and answer a couple of questions and give everyone a chance to read the ZTA at length and also the recommendations, et cetera? Peter?
This is always the problem with whether it's a governmental body or a not-for-profit body. The reason you have committees is to try to make the whole process more efficient. If everything comes about and the board is going to have to ask all the same questions as the committee, there's no sense in having committees. Why we have a committee is we hope, and it looks to me like this committee has done a lot of work in formulating these recommendations, and I think they should be able to put forth in a motion their report and ask for board approval. Now, there'll be some people who will maybe vote against that, or maybe the board will unanimously vote for it. But I think you need to bring this committee's report to the board and ask for the board's approval of the recommendations.
Well, you're asking to be rubber stamped then, and that makes no sense.
No, that's not a rubber stamp. That is our other members who may not be as smart as each one of us have come together with a recommendation, and we need to trust the committee work.
I'd like to see a vote.
I would like to see a vote as well. And I would like to see your questions answered as well, Ken. And I know how active you are, and if you don't agree with the vote, I would certainly hope you would go to the planning board meeting or appear in Zoom form for that, and or the city commission, and that your any questions we can answer, which are minimal compared with what the boards will be able to give you, will further inform you and help you support or not support as an individual. Would anybody like to make a motion on, any of the board of directors like to make a motion on this particular recommendation or any other changes? No one?
Is the committee chair, I can't remember, Mel, you've been with us so long in so many ways.
Mel, please take.
Generally, the committee chair makes a motion, but I don't know if that,
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that the case?
I mean, he's presenting this, but I don't know if you're going to allow Mel, you're on the board or not on the board?
No,
I'm not on the board.
He's not on the
I don't know
board.
how to make a motion.
Then as the committee chair, you should make the motion and look for a second.
Only a board member can make a motion, is my understanding.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
So would one of the board members make that motion? Otherwise, I'll pass the non-existent gavel and I'll make the motion for approval.
I'll make a motion that we accept the the zoning committee recommendations.
Do I have a second? Well, I'll second it, having passed the gavel. Now I'll take the gavel back.
Where are you passing this gavel?
There's no gavel. I missed the gavel.
Right.
Use your imagination. All right, then let's just vote on this and then we'll move forward whichever way it goes. I will.
A point of order, Madam Chair. I think you should have a discussion of the motion, however.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had it.
Well, we had a discussion of the recommendations. I'm not sure that's the same thing.
All right. Can we please have a discussion of the motion? Does anyone have anything they would like to add?
Eileen, do you want to ask if any member representatives have any comments?
Yes, I will.
Board votes.
I want to hear from the board first. Is there anyone else? Any member representatives that are at the meeting have any comments they would like to make on this subject? If so, please put your video on, and if I can't see you, just speak up because I'm trying to see everyone and it's very difficult.
There's a hand raised from Bill Deal.
Okay, I did not see that. Bill, please put your video on and your audio.
For some reason, my video won't click for me.
All right, well, we can hear you.
I don't think you want to look at me this afternoon anyway. I've been running. First of all, I do represent the condo on the bay, and I want to thank Mel and the entire committee for all of the work that they put into this. It is complicated. I believe that we probably have the most interest because we virtually live where they're going to build this. So just a couple of things that I wanted to make sure everybody knows. And there's been a lot of research, so forgive me, but I just feel it's necessary to say this. Ken, you brought up a number of good questions. For instance, the parking space question. And, you know, we have that same concern, and we have it when the Van Wezel is in session, and depending on what kind of thing happens to the orchestra and other events on the property there, that we're not actually sure that there will be enough space for everybody. And that leads folks to go down our street and seek parking and what have you. So I know the statistics might sound good at 850 spaces would be available, but maybe not all the time. And so that bothers us a lot. I think the issue too about how quiet it would be and all of those types of things, it's important for everybody to understand what we're asking for is that they establish some standards to go by. Right now, with what they're asking for, it throws the issue of standards out. So when's the park going to be open and how's it going to be managed and all of that kind of thing is thrown out. The city's not going to have anything to do with those kinds of things. And not only is it going to be our park, understand that these changes affect every single park in the city. So what you're voting on today affects everybody, not just us. The list goes on, there's 11 of them. I'm assuming that your vote today is for all 11. Not sure that I would like to see it go that way because some of them we believe are good and some of them we believe. But I appreciate very much the time that's been spent and I thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Is there anyone else who has anything to say on this particular issue? All right. Patrick.
I mean, before you vote, just for the record, I will be abstaining on this particular vote. While I realize this is a legislative matter coming before the planning board, not quasi-judicial, I will choose to abstain at this time, as I will be rehearing the whole matter in a couple of weeks.
Yes, you will, in detail. All right. I certainly understand that. I'm sorry. Bob Carollo.
Yeah, I just have just a couple of comments. You know, you saw probably in the paper this past week, they're planning a new performing arts hall, and that's 2,250 seats. So if two people went per car, it's still 1,125 parking spots that are going to be necessary to accommodate a full house. Yeah, obviously there'll be some walkers and all that. But they are planning this, and that's about the size of performing arts hall they're going to go with. So I don't know how that 850 parking garage or facility that they're planning is going to work into the bowl. And the other thing I'd like to say is that as far as the pier is concerned, Bill Waddell said that would take about 1.5 years of federal planning and permitting. So it seems to me, whatever concerns anyone would have regarding the marine safety, the federal government would more or less take care of whatever regulations that'll be involved in that. So it probably just really comes down to the Condo on the Bay people being concerned about noise from additional people on the pier is my understanding. And if the pier was placed a little further north on the property, they would probably be a little happier.
Thank you, Bob. Mel, did you want to address the parking at all?
Well, the new performance arts city, I mean, they're going to have to provide for parking. I don't know where that is, but the site plan will deal with some of the issues that Bob's talking about. I mean, as far as, I think I lost the issue now, but as far as parking, that will, all we're saying right now is we don't have a national standard. So there's nothing I could recommend and have any way of backing it up. Even what's in our code, one space for 10 acres would not be satisfactory, but that's what is in there, and I don't know where it came from. So if I can find a national standard, then I would recommend that. What I'm saying now is we have 1,300 spaces. We have a build out, which is probably 10 years away. So they're still planning on 800 spaces. When the Performing Arts Center is built, which is probably may not be in my lifetime, they're going to have to provide for parking as well at that time. I think our recommendation on parking is adequate for now. And when we get around to the site plan, we may want to do something else. May have more information at that time. Right now, we're just dealing with those ZTAs, not asking you to support any of the ZTAs or approve them. All I'm asking you to do is approve our recommendations, and we'll take those to the planning board, and we'll see what happens. We'll go from there.
I think just to add to that a little bit, part of the conversation was that there will be 1,300 spaces where will still be where they are today,
right,
for some period of time. This is only phase one. However, as the Bay representatives mentioned, well, you know, transportation will be transformed in the next so many years. But the question put to them was, what do we do in the meantime? For the next 20 or 30 years, there should be an interim plan. Don't just plan for 50 years from now, because in the meantime, there are going to be people who want to take advantage of the phase one part of the project and phase two, who have to drive and who will drive. So it was just a request to have an interim plan and then a long-term plan. But there are no specifics in these recommendations because you just simply can't at this point. We don't have the expertise for that or the backup in statistics. Anyone else? Ken?
Well, my work background is in a federal regulatory law enforcement agency. I also helped to write federal regulations, and I wrote preamble statements justifying changes in federal regulations or denying changes in federal regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very attuned to having data and facts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think these recommendations are too vague to go forward to a legislative body and say, this is what we want you to do. So I can't support the motion.
I understand. I wish we had more as well, but again, we are not the planning board. I guess the motion, I'm sorry, did someone speak?
Well, I was just, you know, this is also general. That's about all we can really do. I mean, it's not, we're asking them to be concerned about parking on bordering streets, to be aware of putting some sort of time rule on environmental damage. I mean, it's pretty vanilla in one way. So it's a chance to get our, I'm not sure exactly what it does other than to put DSCA as somebody who's interested in what's going on, an organization among, you know, lots of organizations about what's going on. And these are some areas that we'd like them to be concerned about. And to me, it's not going to make up, it's going to go on a pile of lots of other recommendations. I mean, how much difference is this going to make? It's going to put DSCA in there as somebody who, an organization that wants to be recognized.
And I would say highlighting issues that should receive their attention.
Yes.
Which
yes.
is what you said, yes. Anyone else? Okay, the motion on the floor is whether or not to, now I forget, are we accepting this or, yeah, whether or not to accept this and move forward with it.
Accept the recommendations and formally make the recommendations.
Let's decide one way or the other. Or is everybody ready to vote? Patrick is not voting. Jamie?
Yes, I'm ready.
No, actually, what's your vote?
Oh, sorry. Yes, move forward.
Clark?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
John?
I'm voting as city employee,
I'm sorry, what?
not voting as a city employee.
Oh dear, okay. Roger? Roger? Roger, what is your vote?
Thanks, Roger.
No.
No, you do not want to vote for it. Okay. Okay, and Bob, you are out, correct? Or are you in? Are you voting? Are you, yes, Bob Perillo.
Yes, I'll vote yes.
Okay. So, 1, 2.
You haven't asked me.
Ken?
Boy, oh boy, do
think she
I
has.
know, do I understand?
This is how I win.
I get it.
But I didn't vote myself yet. I was saving you for the last. You know, we saved the best for last. Ken, what's your vote?
No.
And I vote yes. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 yes, and 2 no, and 2 abstentions. Oh, David. I'm so
Yes, our new board member.
I am so sorry, David.
I'll vote yes to accept, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. What would I do without all of you to keep me on the straight and narrow? I just don't know. All right. So the motion passes.
Just to correct a question, Eileen, so you said that was 6 yes,
That'll be
2
5.
no, and 2 abstain? Or?
5. I think 5 yes.
But now
Well,
David.
we have 10 now with David.
Okay, I'm going to say, I voted yes. Jamie voted yes. Clark voted yes. Bob voted yes. And David voted yes. Is that correct?
And Peter
Peter
voted.
Fanning?
Peter
And
voted.
Peter voted
And
yes.
Peter voted yes.
Yeah, 6.
Okay. Is that good, Jamie?
Yes,
All right.
got it.
Now, did you have 2 abstentions or 2 recusals?
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, God. You're not even a lawyer.
I think Patrick was a recusal and
I
probably.
thought it was an abstention. I mean, what's the
I had Gannon
difference?
as abstention.
Fine.
Yep.
I'll look
What's
it
the
up.
difference?
Yeah, because
Well,
one's
we
a
know what the
conflict
rules
and
are
one's
for
not.
recusal. Actually, Patrick isn't, well, Patrick,
It's a
you could
conflict.
go either way, Patrick.
Yeah.
Recusal is usually on the basis of financial gain.
Or a conflict of significant nature.
It's tougher. That one's a tougher one.
Right, yeah.
For clarification, was Moran an abstention?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you.
I think Patrick is too.
Yeah, that's what I had. I had Patrick for abstention.
Okay. Thank you, Mel.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you all. Okay, now, surprisingly, the next thing on the agenda is the Bay Park Conservancy report from Bob Parolo.
And actually, I think we talked about most of the things that are involved here. But there is a survey that's going to be being launched by the Van Wezel for the new Performing Arts Hall. And as I say, it's a 2,250 seat venue. And the survey can be accessed from My Sarasota performingartscenter.org, and that survey is going to go through November. And I suspect that this new Performing Arts Hall may move along a little faster than maybe any of us anticipated. And I'm going to also, based on the plan, it looks like it's going to be a lot closer to 10th Street than it will be to Boulevard of the Arts.
Oh.
And the other thing I have is that I think Roger may have mentioned it also, but the west side of the trail next to the bayou has been completed. And the bridge is open, and the walkway and a rubberized walkway is open. I haven't been down there to see it myself, but I'm sure some people have already been there.
Thanks, Bob. Are there any questions for Bob? All right, any questions from anyone in the audience?
Just quickly, Bob, would you send the link to that survey so we can include it in our newsletter?
Sure will.
Thank you, Bob. Is Richard Moans here? I know he was earlier. Richard, are you still with us? Yes, you are. Richard, can you put your video on and your audio if you would? Or at least your audio. There you are.
Yes, here I am.
And Richard is head of the Rosemary District Association Committee, reporting on what they're up to. Richard?
Yes, things are exciting here. The city is moving forward with the beautification and complete streets landscape of both Boulevard of the Arts and 10th Street. We've recognized those as main thoroughfares to the Bay, and David Lowe in particular was instrumental in working with the city to get these raised in the Sarasota in Motion plan, and we will be seeing some changes there, which I think will be very positive. Other than that, you've heard about some trees that David has been working with the Green Space Committee on Florida Avenue, and I should probably defer to him to discuss some of these things in more detail.
Yes, thanks, Richard. I've been told that the trees along Florida will indeed happen. There are plans for about 11 trees in total, and that would be between Boulevard of the Arts and down to the face of Wisdom on Fifth. So hopefully that's going to be happening in the next month. I'm actually have a call with Marlon to talk more specifics about that tomorrow. But that's all I've got. And as Richard said, the really good news is initial funding was put in place in Monday afternoon city commission meeting to start the planning for Boulevard of the Arts and 10th. So there's about $325,000 in total that will be used in this coming fiscal year for the planning, and then hopeful construction year 2 after that. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, David. And Richard, is that it for you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ken, you have a question.
Of David. Did you say on Florida between Boulevard of the Arts and 10th Street? I missed that.
Boulevard of the Arts and down to 5th, I meant.
Oh.
Down to Risdon, the east side of McCowan.
Oh, okay.
North south, there's about 250 feet there. That's just a barren sand trap right now. And it looks like about 11 trees in total that are going to be irrigated, and they should be installed sometime.
Yeah, I thought you said 10th Street, and I thought, well, 11th Street.
Excuse me, that was my mistake.
No, I just couldn't hear you, that's all.
Any other questions about the Rosemary District? All right, Jamie, did you have any luck locating Kristen?
Hey, Eileen?
I still
forgot-
have an events committee hasn't done its update.
Yes, we were looking for Kristen. Oh, you're going to handle it. That's
I
right.
have the events update, yeah, just not the update on the old business.
Please,
yeah.
Please do, yes.
Eileen, didn't we
Yes.
skip CCNA? Didn't we skip CCNA on the agenda here?
We did, but I'm coming back to that. I wanted to finish
okay.
the committee reports.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so the events committee met on September 21st, and we discussed the next DSCA/associate members event. And we're proposing an event on Thursday, November 5th from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. roughly via Zoom/webinar. The topic is we would like to address was something we had talked about before, which was reserve studies. And we're still in the middle of pinning down speakers. So Patrick, I don't know if you wanted to put up our proposal I sent out earlier to you.
Yeah, hang on, where is it?
So I do believe we need board approval.
This is board approval just for the topic, Jamie? Is that what you're talking
I
about?
think the topic was already approved, but if you guys are okay with the date, and then we're gonna do it on Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, what, trying to,
Stand by for screen sharing.
yeah, why is it?
And while Patrick, I have a couple other updates so I can discuss while you're putting that
Yeah,
up
go
there.
ahead. This is some reason
yeah,
it's not
sure.
coming up here.
We have a tentative meeting scheduled with the Platinum members this Friday at 4 o'clock to review the 2021 benefit levels, and that is going to be dependent on interest. So far, Kristen can probably give us the latest update on just how many of the Platinum members were willing to meet, and I don't think we have a lot of interest in that right now. So that may or may not happen on Friday. And then the events committee also discussed proposing no annual holiday party this year, seeing that we don't really have a safe way to do so, to meet and have food and things like that.
Okay, I do see Kristen, she's on the phone, so that's good.
I'm here. Yeah, we have zero, hi. We have zero participation for our Platinum member meeting on a Friday.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a sign of something going on, so we'll just keep our eyes on that. Yeah.
It's tough to get zero participation. That's
yeah.
I'm sure it is a sign of
Yeah,
the
I don't.
I think
Yeah, I don't know if it's
no
a
hors
date
d'oeuvre.
conflict. What was that?
I think it has to do with there aren't any hors d'oeuvres.
I don't know. It could be just a conflict in the date, but we'll
Sure.
see.
Of course. Patrick, if it won't work, Jamie, would you be able to describe what you were talking about?
Jamie, I can let you share. For some reason, I had it up and then it's just blocking right now.
I can just, yeah, let me, just a moment.
And this requires a board vote for the date and the fact that it is a Zoom meeting?
I believe so.
Okay.
So we're hoping for somewhere between, we actually had put together a little piece of paper, but it's not coming up. So we're hoping for between 75 and 150 attendees. Our group would be the downtown condo residents, board of directors, and condo managers. So we're planning on discussing the following points. What is a reserve study? How does a condominium association plan and fund for reserves? What type of reserve studies are there? How often should my association conduct a reserve study? What legal requirements are condominium associations regulated by with regards to reserve studies? When does a change in the common elements require a vote? What percentage of the membership approves a vote? Who do I hire to perform a reserve studies? How much does it cost? Where do I find reputable contractors to complete capital projects? What is the legal process to engaging into a contract with a service provider? What is my manager's role in a reserve study or capital projects? Can my association waive reserve contributions? Who determines and oversees the stages of a capital? And we were hoping to have Alexandra Turner of Associate Gulf Coast be our moderator. And we'd start out with a welcome, and then each of our speakers would be allowed a 5 to 10 minute presentations. And we're still pinning down some of the speakers. So
And repeat the date, Jamie.
it was November 5th. That's a Thursday from 5:30 to approximately 7 p.m. We decided against doing any kind of in-person event. So it would just be on.
That's a very busy week, you know.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions about that for Jamie or Kristen? Ken?
I just have a comment. I love the topics. I think they're really relevant. And I hope my board and manager attend.
Me too.
We hope so too.
When will the announcement be made so that we can notify our people?
Would hope as soon as possible. As soon as we have these speakers, as soon as we have approval, and then we have the speakers locked down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. No further questions. Kristen, did you have anything to add?
Nope, she pretty much summed it up. We're just having trouble getting panelists. So I just need Patrick to get back with me on the 2 that I'm proposing instead of the ones we originally proposed.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a direct advice one way or the other. I think that's, I don't know whether Jamie or Eileen has any inputs on that. I think, yes, we need to reach out and come up with a final list as soon as possible. So put together a flyer and everything.
Yeah, since we have, my opinion would be, Patrick, if we don't have any response from the ones that we had originally discussed, then we should move on to Kristen's next slide.
I would agree, yeah.
Okay.
What kind of person are you looking for? I mean, do you need an attorney, or can you have somebody from a condominium that's just, been head of the finance committee or something that has just completed a reserve study? I mean, what kind of expert do you need? Practical or legal? I'm sorry, I don't mean legal people aren't practical.
Right.
Sorry, not.
Yeah, we do need the legal aspect to quote the statutes on what's required for reserves and condos. So we had a condo attorney, but he didn't respond, so I'm just going to go out to another condo attorney. And we also need a reserve study specialist or engineer. So the engineer I reached out to did not respond, so I'm going to reach out to one of our other platinum members who is a reserve study specialist.
I would suggest that there are some excellent CPAs who could do this as well.
But that runs it. Does anybody have any thoughts about the date? Any concerns about the date?
Will we have recovered?
That's, well, we will have, the election is the 3rd.
Right.
And we have a meeting on the 4th. And then this is on the 5th. So
Yeah.
it's a busy week. Okay, so no further discussion. I'm sorry, Kristen.
I would just say, Eileen, yeah, I would just say I'm flexible on the date. I think Jamie is too, and we can work on another date. I'll go through the calendar. I was just trying to avoid, November is such a short month with Thanksgiving, and everybody, all the other organizations are cramming their meetings in those first couple of weeks. So I was trying to avoid a conflict, but I can look again and see if we can get out of that week, maybe.
Maybe the 12th, Kristen? That's still
12th is no good.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Patrick? No?
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, the 12th, unfortunately, is the city's planning board was moved from the Wednesday to the Thursday. And so, but that does open up the Tuesday or the Wednesday on the 10th or 11th, possibly, of November.
The 11th
Although
is
there's,
Veterans Day.
yeah, Veterans Day, but that was Silver City, but you could have a evening. I don't know if there's any events going on that would be conflicting with the evening. So
There's also,
but the other thing,
the 13th is Friday. Very appropriate.
also, just to clarify, this was to be put on as a Platinum Associate sponsored event, right? And so we would be having Platinum members there, and would be doing the prize drawing, and we would have a registration system set up so that people would opt in for the prize drawing, et cetera.
Yes.
And their contact or their email would be then formally handed off to the sponsors of that for follow-up with those people who are then entered into the prize drawing.
All right, so at this point, let's just decide, are we doing this on Zoom? Is that even a question? But we do have to vote. So do we have to get this consensus to do it on Zoom? Anybody disagree? Okay. As for the date, now I think they're working on the 5th. Does anyone prefer that another date? Kristen said she might be able to do another date, or should she just stick with the 5th? Roger, you're muted. Did you say something? Anyone? Thoughts? David?
Yeah, I would suggest see if another date's available. I'm just concerned about that week of who knows, but it would seem to me that there's a decent chance of it being pretty chaotic. So I would, if there's another date available, say the next week, that it's not a conflict, it would be my personal recommendation to strongly look at that.
I think people will be preoccupied, that's for sure. Anyone else have thoughts on that? I'm sorry, Kristen?
Just kind of responding to that, I was quickly looking through a couple of things on the 11th. It looks good, but we'll have to check with our moderator, Alex, to see if she's available on the 11th.
That's a federal holiday, I believe, Veterans Day. I don't know if that makes a difference or it makes it easier for people to show up, or I don't know.
Probably also a city holiday.
Most likely.
Well, Veterans Day is one of those, wherever it falls, it usually is celebrated on the Monday. On the 8th.
Yeah, if they're going to have any parades, I would think.
Yeah. The city will recognize it on the 9th, I believe.
That's probably right.
Do we want to say that if Alex is available on the 11th, then we would agree to the 11th? If Kristen's okay with that.
Yeah, she's telling me she's good on the 11th.
All right.
Okay.
Can we have a consensus for the 11th, or do anybody prefer the 5th? Please speak up. You're all silent. We'll be here all night.
I'm okay with either day.
Is it a consensus for the 11th then? At least a good attempt at the 11th. Anybody opposed? Thank you, Kristen, for that.
Okay, do we need to vote on not having a holiday party, or is that something we can just just move on with?
Gosh, that's a hard decision. I don't know that we could possibly have a holiday party.
No.
Does anybody else have a different opinion? Can we all go to Roger's house?
Yes, here we go.
Eileen, would we want to at all consider some outdoor event?
Close the street.
You know, that's, I just was throwing that out there.
You know, Roger wants it as his house. See, he's shaking his head no. We could. I can't hear you, Roger. You're muted.
You have to be young in order to attend. How young?
Yeah, we'll have to put an age limit on it. I mean, that's a great idea, Patrick, but I think an awful lot of our board members have expressed the fact that they don't even go out, you know, and I hate to do it without them. Anybody else thoughts?
An informal get together at Cafe Classico out on the street, El Melvin, Salva Grill, Epicure. Just make it
Rooftop
informal.
at Artivation.
Oh, there you go. Make it, yeah.
Not really a burden.
Even better.
But who would attend an outdoor event? Let's just put it that way. Peter?
Yes, I would.
Clark? David?
Yeah.
Ken?
If it's on the roof of Artovation.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Jamie?
Yes.
Bob, I'm calling you in the order you're on my screen, by the way. Bob?
Yes.
You would? Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Roger.
Eileen, how about the Selby Gardens?
Yeah, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Roger, are you a yes or a no?
Maybe.
Maybe. And I think John may have left, but he always.
John would be a no.
Yeah,
That would definitely be a no.
well, okay, there you go.
You want me to start setting something up then?
Okay, if everybody is okay with it.
Okay.
Thank
I'll
you.
throw out
Sure.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
throw
you.
out some ideas from some places, and then I'll look at dates, okay?
Thank you very much
Sure.
for that. Before we go to CCNA, there was still the annual condo survey. Do you want to put that off to the next meeting?
All I have really is, and maybe Kristen could step into, all I really have is an email from Sheila with some prices. That's all I really have, unless Kristen has some more information.
No, I don't. That's the last email I got.
Okay.
That's at the next meeting then. We'll
Okay.
talk about that.
All right.
All right. Ted Wilson, are you still here? I see your
Yes.
name. If you could put your video and your audio on and tell us about CCNA.
Really, Elaine, that Marlon covered almost all the same points that he covered at the CCNA meeting, which was of interest. The only thing he didn't do is that he also said there's been no date set yet for a vote on Selby Gardens and on unconditional surrenders move. And we tried to press him to see what the survey was showing on unconditional surrender, and he didn't give us any information at all on unconditional surrender or where it might go. There's a date, let's see, he said there was no date yet also set for the tree advisory recommendations, and that the planning board was meeting in November, and there may be some update at that time. Probably the city council or city commission would vote on the tree advisory recommendations possibly in January, ways down the road. And that was really it. All the rest of it was in Marlon's report when he was on. So I don't want to repeat all that and take everybody's time.
All right, thank you, Ted. Which now, Jamie, do you want to introduce the Platinum Associates, or is that Kristen? I'm not sure.
That's Kristen.
Okay, Kristen.
Hi, everyone. I think it's only me and Alex at this point, so I'm going to let Alex take the show.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Again, I'm Alex Turner with Associate Gulf Coast Management. Thanks so much for having me today and giving me the opportunity to moderate the event in November. Very excited about that. I just had a few items I wanted to bring up. As far as the Platinum Member Planning event, I know myself and Associate is very interested in that. The date did not work for us. So if there's any way of rescheduling it, that would be great. There wasn't a ton of notice on that, so I definitely am interested in that. But again, we're Associate. We do management portfolio on-site, high-rise, low-rise, mid-rise, and we definitely are interested in speaking to you about any kind of education, events, or management, or anything we can help you with. So thank you very much. Oh, also,
go ahead, Alex.
Sorry. One last thing, Jamie, I just did a rooftop event at Art Ovation, so if you need any help with that, I'm glad to chip in.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Kristen, anything else?
Just a quick note on my end, you know, Allie Huter has retired. And so I've taken a few of her clients, Professional Plumbing and Right Way Emergency Services. Right Way is a Platinum member. They do fire, water, and mold, and environmental cleanup. They also do the cleaning for COVID at all the buildings. So if you need any help there, let me know. I still represent CBiz. Just so you know, what's new there is we're looking at a 20 to 36% insurance increase for your association next year. So hopefully you budgeted for that. There's many reasons behind that. If you have any questions, Matt Mercier can answer those about your insurance policies for your condo. And that's it.
Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that. At this point, we take any questions from the member representatives. Are there any representatives who had something they'd like to say or ask or request? If so, put your video on and your audio, of course.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is
Peter Lynn.
Peter Lynn from Alinari. I'm not sure if this is the right platform to ask this question, but we're looking into preventatively cleaning up vertical sewer stacks. And I was just wondering if any other condominiums are already doing that.
Wow.
I believe that the Savoy on Palm did that last year, or maybe 18 months ago now. And you might be able to call the property manager there, who is Bill Veal. I think the contact information is on the website for condominium.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
1350 Main Street did that last year, and 5 Points Plaza did it as well.
And do you know if they're also regularly planning on doing that repetitively every 6 or 8 years, or?
That's another question.
Yes, I think part of it was it wouldn't have to be for another 10.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. I wasn't part of it.
Okay. I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Peter, there's experience at
Patrick?
at Condo on the Bay went through that. In fact, they did a fairly extensive evaluation. At one point, it was recommended they were going to have to like replace the cast iron pipes, and they were able to get another evaluation after dropping cameras and ended up lining and so forth like that. So there are options out there, and I know so maybe
yes, we're also looking into
property
doing the
manager
camera
at Condo
work
on the Bay can
beforehand.
point you to who they used for that too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Can I jump in, Eileen?
Yes, sure.
Just quickly, I just wanted to let Mr. Lynn know that Professional Plumbing can do that. They'll come in with the video camera and give you a memory stick video of your system. So a lot of places don't do that, even though that you pay for that service. So I can get you that information if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, I think we're looking into them as well. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ted?
Peter, Ted Wilson at the Regency House. We're in the process of doing both vertical and horizontal pipes since we have a cast iron system here. And all of our verticals are almost replaced, but we're in the process of looking at our horizontals as well.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of.
He can give you people who do both. And we have a cast iron system since we were built in the late 60s.
Okay. Good info. Thank you.
Elaine, as far as another subject we brought up, as many of us are probably now in the process of doing budget review and putting together forecasts for 21. I've gone on the board of directors here at Regency House, and our treasurer has requested to see if there was any interest in the DSCA of having a separate roundtable or committee meetings of just the treasurers of the different boards or the different condominiums in downtown. See if they could compare notes on costs and so forth to find out, if they've got common problems to look at. Is there anything like that?
Well, Ted, if you want to be the point person, or if your treasurer would like to be the point person, we can certainly put a query in the next update, asking if any treasurers would like to take part in discussions like that. But let me know who they should contact.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions, thoughts? Patrick?
One quick mention I will give to people, both to board members and member reps and those attending. You may have noticed that when you register for the meetings, if you take a look at your registration confirmation email, towards the bottom after your registration details, after your name and so forth and address, there's a item in there that says topic interest. If you don't have it on yours, it means you've not filled it out. If you see it on there, it lists any of the areas of interest like city events, green space, homelessness, transportation, land development. We will be using these topic interests in the future for sending out like news flashes on specific topics, like with Peter's homeless. So I would suggest to people, when you have an opportunity, if you're interacting with the website, when you're receiving these notices, take a look at that list of interest. And if you have an area of interest that you haven't checked the box, please do so. We will be using that in the future.
Thank you, Patrick. If there's nothing further, this is your last chance. Let me just say again, welcome to David. We are now 10 strong, and we do invite other people to join the committees. And our next meeting will be November 4th, 2020, when we'll have plenty to discuss, mostly from this meeting and possibly from the night before. So we will hopefully see you at 4 p.m. on November 4th. Have a good week and weekend, everyone.
Thank you.